In 1999, unexpected disaster struck as Manny prepared to defend his flyweight crown against Thailand's Medgoen Singsarat. As a teenager, Manny was so undernourished that he had to stuff coins into his shoes just to make the fighting weight. But now he had a new problem.
His body had developed so much that he no longer could hold his weight down to 112 pounds, which is the limit for the flyweight division. So he was stripped to the championship on the scales when he couldn't make the weight. But he went through with the fight because he wouldn't be able to get his purse if he didn't step into the ring.
In attempting to make the weight, Manny was dehydrated. The undefeated Medgoen knocked a listless Pacquiao out in just 3 rounds. After the fight, Manny, who was still growing at 21, took on a new weight division that was 10 pounds heavier. He regained his luster by becoming the regional super bantamweight champion at 122 pounds. But by now, Manny and his team were eager to find success in America.
Manny had run out of opposition in Asia. So his business manager, Rod Nazario, said, well, Manny, let's go over to the States and find out whether you could hook up with a trainer, whether that trainer might be able to give you opportunities to fight for major fights. So this was in 2001, and Manny Pacquiao first landed in San Francisco. I remember Manny came into the States with his hair bleached blonde. I guess he just wanted to be different, or maybe he realized that now that he was in the States, maybe he wanted to be like an American too. But that's how he is. He's never scared of trying different new things.
Despite being a champion in Asia, though, Manny's arrival in America was like starting over.
Rod Nazario had a difficult time finding a promoter who was willing to risk an investment in Manny Pacquiao. And I remember Manny went from one gym in San Francisco to another, looking for a home where a trainer could spend some time with him. Nobody wanted to touch him. Until his business manager, Rod Nazario, found out that there were 2 Filipino fighters training at the Wild Card Gym in Los Angeles.
The Wild Card Gym in Hollywood was owned by Freddie Roach. Roach had made a name for himself training the likes of Mickey Rourke and other champions, and taking on Manny would change both their lives.
When Manny walked into the Wild Card Gym, Freddie didn't even know who Manny Pacquiao was. Here's this kid from the Philippines who had won some titles over in Asia, but Freddie really had no idea who this guy was.
Then they took him to work with Freddie on the punch mitts. And after maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, Freddie Roach said, this kid can hit. This kid's gonna be a champion. That was it. That sealed the deal.
And so the most powerful partnership in boxing was born. It would prove to be just the lift that Manny needed to transform himself from just another boxer into the world's greatest fighter. Manny Pacquiao's arrival in the U.S. in 2001 signaled a new chapter in his career. Over the next decade, he would become the world's greatest fighter, winning an unprecedented 9 world titles in 7 weight divisions, a feat that no one would have thought possible without the help of one man, Freddie Roach.
Freddie Roach is a very astute man. He's a great trainer. He can see talent where others may not see the talent. And he realized that 2 things Pacquiao had going for him, his speed and his power.
It's really one of the greatest combinations in boxing history.
Not long after meeting Roach in 2001, Pacquiao got his first break in the American arena. IBF champion Laloho Nolo Ledwaba from South Africa was scheduled to defend his super bantamweight title, but his opponent dropped out.
It was 2 weeks' notice. They asked Manny Pacquiao, you want to fight? I said, yes, I'm ready. And they said, you trained only 2 weeks. No, but I'm ready.
Manny entered the ring as the underdog, but already pictured himself as the victor.
His business manager, Rod Nazario, asked him one thing. The first opportunity, break Ledwaba's nose. And Manny said, okay, manager, I'll see what I can do.
True enough, within the first minute of the fight, Manny bloodied Ledwaba's nose.
Nobody was expecting too much, and lo and behold, he was sensational. He scored a 6-round knockout, and suddenly was a player because of that surprising, spectacular performance. So that was really what brought into the attention of people in this country.
Back home, Manny's championship victories were celebrated with hometown parades and invitations to the Malacañang Palace by President Gloria Arroyo. In spite of his tough reputation, Manny's fighting skills were still developing. For all his power, he was still a one-handed fighter who relied on his left hook to knock his opponents out. Under the tutelage of Freddie Roach, the transformation of Manny Pacquiao was about to begin.
Freddie Roach said, this boy has to be repackaged. Keep that big punch. The most important thing was, Freddie taught Manny how to fight intelligently. This was something that was very new to Manny.
Roach is a cerebral boxing mind. When you look at Pacquiao's incredible athletic ability combined with that boxing intelligence, then that's a lethal combination.
More than just being a coach, however, Roach gradually became the father figure that Manny never had.
His relationship with Pacquiao is the most unusual relationship between a fighter and a trainer. He calls him son.
Manny's father left his family when Manny was not even in his teens. So all his life, Manny has been looking really for a father figure, a father image. And he saw it in Freddie Roach.
Manny is from an incredibly poor background, so is Freddie, and they just had that language of boxing, they had a language of poverty.
He was a man who could teach Manny the way to maturity.
Despite suffering from Parkinson's disease, Roach has managed to train no less than 25 world champions. But Manny remains his star pupil.
Manny's unbelievable. He makes me look good. He's the best fighter in the world, and that's why he makes me the best trainer in the world.
Ang relasyon naman namin ni Freddie Roach is talagang teamwork kami. Hindi kami nagkakailangan sa isa't isa dahil matagal na kaming magkasama at sa training lagi kaming nagkakasundo.
In 2003, Manny's deadliest test arrived in the form of three-time world champion Marco Antonio Barrera. Having put on muscle yet again, Manny would now fight for the ring's featherweight title.
Barrera was considered one of the very best fighters in the world. Manny was something of an upstart, just starting to rise. And the expectation was that Barrera would be just too much for him.
Nobody gave Pacquiao a chance. Everybody, including Filipinos, said Barrera was too big, too strong, too good for Pacquiao. But Pacquiao just smiled and said, you see, we will see.
Instead, the fight turned out to be Pacquiao's defining moment.
He beat the hell out of Marco Antonio Barrera for 11 rounds until Barrera's brother jumped into the ring, embraced him, and stopped the fight.
Now a three-time world champion in 3 different weight classes, Manny's confidence and size continued to grow. But the competition was only getting tougher. In 2005, Manny, now fighting as a 130-pound lightweight, squared off against Mexican legend Erik Morales. Things took a nasty turn. During the match, a headbutt for Morales opened up a bloody cut on Manny's brow. With blood hampering his vision, Manny had to hold on as a feisty Morales took the 12-round decision. It was only Manny's 3rd loss in over 40 fights. Both fighters were so popular that 2 rematches were signed. And in typical fashion, Manny rose to the occasion and knocked Morales out, not once, but twice.
I thought Manny Pacquiao, at that time, delivered a very strong statement that he was for real and that he was on the way to greater things.
In spite of having Freddie Roach and a capable team on his side, Manny found success catching up with him. His career had been managed by a few promoters since his arrival, Now that he was a hot property, everyone wanted a piece of the Pac-Man. Boxer Oscar de la Hoya was Manny's idol and a legend in his own right. But a contractual mix-up arose when Manny signed up with Oscar de la Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions Company while still being bound to Bob Arum of Top Rank Boxing. In the controversy, Manny ended up staying with Top Rank, a decision that would cost De La Hoya's company tens of millions of dollars in lost revenue.
De La Hoya, of course, never forgave him for that. But in the end, he realized there was nothing very much he could do. And that's how it stood.
Not surprisingly, amid his growing stature, Manny's private life came under scrutiny from the Filipino press. It was one area of his life where he was not untouchable. In 2006, reports emerged of a paternity suit from a waitress. And over the years, Manny and his family would endure reports linking him to various actresses and other women. The allegations, however, failed to dent his popularity. Back in the ring, it was business as usual as Manny continued to steamroll his opponents. His ruthless and relentless destruction of the top Latin American fighters earned him the title the Mexicutioner. At home, he was known more affectionately as the Pac-Man, which is also the name of his Jack Russell Terrier, who trains with him.
Very few athletes that have achieved the great success and fame that Manny Pacquiao has can retain that innocent charm, boyish smile, the wild hair flying as he fights. He says the same thing after every fight.
I hope you enjoyed the show, and nothing personal, doing my job in the ring. I hope everybody happy.
And that's very rare that you hear athletes today actually caring about the audience.
When Manny Pacquiao fights, everything stops. The streets are deserted. Everybody is in front of a television set. Crime is almost zero. The Muslim rebels stop fighting. And that whole day is a day of bliss in the Philippines.
When 2008 rolled around, Manny Pacquiao found himself with a new challenge. He would face off with his boxing idol Oscar de la Hoya in what promoters called the dream match.
The fight with Oscar de la Hoya really did cement his international fame, because Oscar de la Hoya is an icon. Everybody knows who Oscar de la Hoya is.
An Olympic and 8-time world champion, Oscar was considered even more popular than Pacquiao by the public, and a dangerous opponent for Manny.
De La Hoya was so much bigger than Pacquiao, and people thought it was a terrible mismatch.
The controversy that had erupted over Manny's previous management contract, however, was still lingering in everyone's mind.
Now, the thing about that fight was very special. Oscar de la Hoya said, "This is personal. I am going to knock him out."
Ang pinaka-paborito kong fight is yung De La Hoya fight kasi first time ko nag-move up to 147 pounds. Ano yun, pinakamalaking timbang na nilabanan niya.
Oscar, a natural middleweight, had to drop nearly 20 pounds himself to meet Manny at the welterweight level. When Manny finally stepped into the ring, however, he trumped the odds one more time.
Pacquiao made Oscar look old overnight.
The fight lasted 8 rounds before De La Hoya threw in the towel.
Manny gave Oscar such a terrible and prolonged beating that Oscar retired immediately afterward.
In spite of the beating, Manny, as ever, was gracious in victory.
Manny Pacquiao went across, embraced him and said, "You are still my idol."
Yes, idol ko siya, tapos nakalaban ko. Proud naman ako. Malaking karangalan sa akin.
In defeating De La Hoya, Pacquiao now looked invincible, going from strength to strength. He would win world titles in 7 different weight divisions by 2009, an unmatched feat by any fighter past or present.
Manny has been able to grow in size, move up and win titles in various divisions, but he can still knock him out. To maintain the punch as you move up and fight larger and larger men is very unusual. And I think it's one of the greatest attributes he has.
I think Manny Pacquiao is very much like a Roberto Duran.